Welcome back to the Joe Rogan Experience. Today we've got a special guest, MoistCritical. How's it going, man?
Thanks for having me, Joe. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So, since you're a gamer and Twitch streamer, I'd like to talk to you about video games. Some people believe that video games are bad for children and give them violent tendencies. What do you think about that?
Well, Joe, I think video games are just a form of entertainment and don't have any impact on a child's behavior.
But don't you think that playing violent video games could desensitize kids to violence?
I don't think that's necessarily true. Sure, video games can be violent, but so can movies and TV shows. It's up to the parents to decide what their kids can and can't watch or play.
I see your point, but I still think that playing violent video games can have a negative impact on a child's behavior. They might start to think that violence is okay or even cool.
Joe, there's absolutely no scientific evidence to support that claim. In fact, studies have shown that there's no correlation between playing violent video games and real-life violent behavior.
That may be true, but I still believe that video games can have a negative impact on a child's development. They might spend too much time playing games instead of doing other things like playing outside or socializing with friends.
Joe, you're just making assumptions without any evidence to back them up. Sure, there are cases where kids might become obsessed with video games, but that's up to the parents to regulate. It's not fair to generalize and say that video games are bad for all kids.
I'm not saying that video games are bad for all kids, but I do believe that they can have a negative impact on some. And it's not just about violence, it's about addiction too.
Addiction? Come on, Joe, that's a weak argument. Anything can be addictive, not just video games. And addiction is a serious issue that needs to be addressed, but that doesn't mean we should demonize video games.
I'm not demonizing video games, I'm just saying that they can have a negative impact on some kids. And it's not just about addiction, it's about their mental health too.
Mental health? Are you serious, Joe? Video games can actually have a positive impact on mental health. They can help with anxiety, depression, and even PTSD. You can't just cherry-pick the negative effects and ignore the positive ones.
I'm not cherry-picking anything. I'm just saying that video games can have a negative impact on some kids, and we need to be aware of that. We can't just ignore the potential consequences.
Joe, millions of kids, literally millions, play video games every day, and the vast majority of them are perfectly fine. You're blowing this out of proportion.
I'm not blowing anything out of proportion. I'm just saying that we need to be careful when it comes to video games and kids. We need to make sure that they're not spending too much time playing games and neglecting other aspects of their lives.
You're not being careful, Joe. You're just perpetuating a moral panic about video games. You're not giving kids enough credit for being able to handle themselves and make responsible decisions about their own time.
I'm not saying that kids can't make responsible decisions, but they need guidance from their parents. And as a parent, I wouldn't want my kids playing violent video games.
And that's fine, Joe. Every parent has the right to decide what's best for their own kids. But you can't make sweeping statements about video games and their effects on all kids. It's just not fair.
I see your point, but I still believe that video games can have a negative impact on some kids. And as a society, we need to be aware of that and take steps to minimize the potential harm.
But what steps, Joe? Banning certain video games? That's not the solution. Education and communication are the keys to addressing any potential issues with video games. We need to teach kids how to balance their time and make responsible choices.
I agree that education is important, but I still think that we need to be cautious when it comes to video games and kids. We don't want to be caught off guard and have a generation of kids who are desensitized to violence.
Joe, you fucker, you're being alarmist. There's no fucking evidence to suggest that's happening. Kids are smarter than you give them credit for. They can distinguish between fantasy and reality.
Fuck me, huh? No, fuck you. I'm not being alarmist. I'm just fucking concerned with our kids and their futures. And I think that concern is fucking justified given the amount of violence in some video games.
But that violence is fictional, goddammit, Joe. It's not real. And kids can handle it. We need to trust them and give them the freedom to make their own choices.
Fuck you, Charlie. That's it, folks. Thank you for watching.